everyone, it's Maddie, and today I'm starting the first video in a new series from me and B, which is where we review books that have asexual protagonists. These are really important to us because we both identify as ace ourselves, and we wanted to give an own voices perspective on representation. This isn't to say that we speak for the whole community. There are a lot of different types of asexuality, and you can identify with it as much or as little as you want to. So of course this is just our opinion, but I hope it's valuable to you if you're looking for something like this. The first book that I'm going to be reviewing is Truth or Dare by Pratt. This tells the story of Claire and Seth, and it's all about them creating a YouTube channel and personas in which they take on truths and dares from their audience in order to earn money for Seth's brother who's in intensive care. The story is told from both of their perspectives. You read Claire's first and then you flip the book and get to read Seth's. Sarin, the asexual character, is one of Claire's best friends, so really she's only in the first half, but I've tabbed every moment that I think's relevant and I'm going to go through all of them. So you learn about Sarin's sexuality retrospectively to her other best friend Rich having a crush on her. He tells Claire that he likes Sarin, and so Claire takes it upon herself to tell the audience that this will never work out. So Rich has just said that he fancies Sarin, and this is Claire's reaction. "You fancy Sarin? I sound like it's impossible to believe, but it's not. Sarin looks like an angrier, plumper version of a young Catherine Zeta-Jones, and even the cave boys have been known to give her thoughtful looks." So I guess that's just commenting on her appearance. I'm not really sure what that has to do with her sexuality, but whatever. Then the next sentence is, "It's just that Rich's crush, anyone's, is doomed to failure. Girls, boys, whatever, Sarin just isn't interested. She's asexual, and pretty political about it. Sarin's campaigning is the reason Westbridge has such a comprehensive LGBTQ+ lesson in PSHE. So that's pretty cool that they've identified Sarin as part of the LGBT+ community, because I know that a lot of asexual people feel excluded from that, and so for her to be the person to put those lessons into motion is really important and definitely inclusive. So I really liked that. So once she's told the audience, her response to Rich is to tell him to get over this crush. She says that it's not going to work out for him and that he should just let it go. And this is pretty good. Claire is coming on the right side of the argument. It's not Sarin's fault that she can't like Rich back. So this section is where we slightly err on the problematic side of liking an asexual character. So Rich still hasn't got over it, and he's still talking about it. And Rich says, "Do you really think I shouldn't say anything? It's not like I'm some random." And that didn't really sit well with me, because Rich is having the mentality that just because he knows Sarin, he can somehow fix her sexuality, and I think that's the angle he was going for, and Claire kind of steps back from that and is like, no, that can't happen, and he's holding on to this, which is kind of damaging because it's suggesting that there's something wrong with asexual people. It's something missing from their life that kind of needs to be there when that's not how we feel. And so Rich is the most problematic character at this point, but Claire is still on a good level. Then on page 62 we get Sarin reacting to Rich proclaiming his love for her, and this is done through text, and so Sarin is quite traumatized. It's all in capital letters, there's a lot of exclamation points, and she's trying to articulate just how wrong this feels for her. I'd also like to point out that up until this point I thought Rich didn't know about Sarin's sexuality, and that made his actions kind of excusable because he didn't know how that was going to affect her, or that his feelings wouldn't be reciprocated. So Claire is only telling the audience, and she doesn't actually use those words to Rich. She doesn't say that it's not going to work, so I was very much under the assumption that he didn't know. This is Sarin's speech. "Why, Claire? Why would he tell me all this? He knows. You both do." And so that cleared the air suddenly. I knew that Rich knew, and so he was acting on things that he knew wasn't going to be possible. And then Sarin continues to say, "It's not like that for me. I'm ace, and I'm arrow, and I don't..." Ugh. And there's lots of ellipses in that because she can't really articulate her feelings, and I think that that's pretty genuine when you're trying to explain to people what asexuality is. It's not really something that immediately clicks. So now we get a little bit of inner monologue from Claire that says, "Until Sarin told us she was asexual, I didn't know you could come out as anything other than bi or gay, and I'm not always up on the terms she uses. I spend a lot less time on Tumblr than Sarin does." And then she asks, "What does arrow mean again?" This makes me feel slightly uncomfortable because it falls into the mindset that asexuality is kind of a sexuality that only exists on the internet, and not all people came to identify as ace by seeing it on Tumblr. Associating it with Tumblr as well makes it seem like an underground sexuality, and while I appreciate that yes, not many people know about it at this point, I don't think there's any reason to make it feel exclusive to people that are on the internet. So while it's trying to validate asexuality as a thing, it's also kind of not at the same time by putting it as this like mysterious sexuality that you have to go out and find. So then we go go on to get this little educational snippet from Sarin explaining what aromantic means, and she says, aromantic, no interest in romance, as in zero interest in having a relationship beyond the platonic variety, and certainly not wanting to be accosted on my own doorstep. And from this moment on, Claire switches gears to trying to defend Rich, and that really upsets Sarin, and at this point, I felt upset too. I felt upset on Sarin's behalf. It felt like she wasn't being understood by her closest friends, and this is something that she later goes on to articulate. And this is where I started to fall out of love with Claire. Sarin's saying, I don't want to do the sex stuff with Rich any more than you want to do it with a giant squid. Claire says, no one's saying you have to do any sex stuff. And then Sarin says, but they are, don't you get it? Society thinks women are only good for sex and babies, and I don't want either. This is coming into the political aspect of Sarin's personality, which is interesting, but also asserting the fact that asexuals are kind of written out of society because they don't fit the norm. And Claire's next sentence is, why does Sarin always do this? Turn something as small as an unrequited crush into some giant conspiracy, which ain't being a good friend. And she says, this isn't about society, it's about Rich. Sarin then says, and Rich isn't like that, she finishes for me, but with a lot more sarcasm. And at this point, I know that Sarin had exactly the same thoughts that I did, that Rich was thinking she could cure her in some way, as if that's possible. Oh, she actually uses the word cured, okay. We are on the same wavelength. So then she tries to explain it to Claire, saying, you really think if I agreed to go out with him, he wouldn't want the same from me as other girls? And when he did, what would you say to him? Give it a go, she might say yes. And so this is where Claire realises that she's kind of made a mistake because she's made Sarin feel like she's backed her into a corner, and I'm completely on her side. At this point, I'm turned off both Claire and Rich. And then before all this, there is just a sentence that pushed me into the tipping point of crying because it felt too real and too authentic. Claire says, why are you shouting at me? And Sarin says, because I thought you were on my side, but you're acting just like everyone else, like asexuality isn't real, that it's something I'll grow out of when I meet the right man or woman or whatever. So how good is the ace rep in this now that we've gone over the whole scenario and the plot arc of the asexuality in this book? Well, I'd say that Sarin's reaction and everything about Sarin's personality feels very genuine. She explains it just kind of how I would to another person, and also her emotions are perfectly valid for the situation and how she's reacting. In the end, this is the story of Claire, and there's always the worry that people will fall on her side of the argument and think that Sarin is blowing things out of proportion. Later in the book, Claire comes to realise that she was at fault for this argument, and she was the one that pushed Sarin away, not the other way around. And so that's important because I feel like Pratt does a really good job of villainising, seems like a bit too harsh of a word, but villainising the right people in the situation and never putting the blame on Sarin for who she is. But then again, I think that although it's terrible, I think that Claire and Rich's reaction to Sarin's sexuality and how that all fits together is really genuine as well. I mean, of course people are going to think what Rich does, and not everyone is going to act perfectly or kind of know how to defend asexuality, and that's where Claire slips up. So while I've said that there were a few wordings of Claire's that I felt were iffy and suggested the wrong thing about asexuality, I am 100% happy with how Sarin comes across in this. I guess the one thing that would make this representation even better is if Sarin was the one to identify herself at the beginning. There's something slightly uncomfortable for me about another person identifying someone's sexuality without their permission. And I know it was only to the audience, not another character, but even so, I think there could have been a way for Sarin to say it herself. And also, I would have really liked if she'd have come out as aromantic and asexual all in one go, because that can cause some blurred lines and they are two different things. And so just grouping them under one category of asexual can be a little bit confusing. Hopefully books like this will encourage more people to research asexuality or even add it into their own books. I'd love to see a wave of asexual characters coming out in the near future, and this is definitely a great book to start if you're interested in an asexual protagonist that feels very genuine. Thank you everyone so much for watching this video, and let us know in the comments if there are any other books with asexual protagonists that you'd like us to review. We're always up for finding new ones, and it's definitely something that we want to prioritise in the future just because it's so close to our heart and means a lot to both me and Bea. So hopefully she will turn up in one of these reviews. She just hasn't read this one. But when she reads it, if she has any other thoughts, we'll make sure to add it in the comments or description if you're interested in her perspective as well. Thank you everyone so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!